ESPN moved on to Lance Armstrong, which he's definitely was considered in his time, you know, one of the top athletes in the world, right? I mean, that whole cycling
and probably
thing.
It seemed like one of the most popular ones too. For like bicycling, you wouldn't think that somebody wouldn't be as popular as, I don't know, but especially after like his cancer, he got cancer and then he was like different. That's what everybody said. He got better after his cancer, and he not cured himself, but after he got better from cancer, he came out and was better than he was before.
Yep. So Lance Armstrong, he's a professional cyclist, regarded as being, you know, probably one of the best cyclists in the whole world ever, you know, greatest cyclist of all time. He admitted in that documentary that he started taking, you know, performance enhancing drugs.
Conflicted career,
it is very conflicting. I mean, it's hard to say that he's the best, but at the same time, everybody claims that everybody was doing it, right? All the cyclists were doing it. So if they were all doing it and Lance was the best, then, you know, he's still kind of the best,
I don't know, like, and even before, I mean, he said he started taking it when he was 21. So basically his entire professional career, he was taking performance enhancing drugs. He was taking steroids. And I don't know. I think when he won his first world championship before he got cancer, he was using, and then he went to a Tour de France and placed second. But I don't know, never mind. I was going to say that maybe before the steroids, like Barry Bonds, like before the steroids, he was still one of the best players in the league. But once he used steroids, he just elevated himself.
Took him to another level, So Lance Armstrong was taking a banned substance called EPO.
A bunch of shit, though. Cortisone, like he was before. And then they kind of cracked down. I think it was like in 98. They started cracking down. But still, like you said, EPO, that stuff was undetectable for the longest time.
Yep, and that was the main one that he used. And essentially what that did was it allowed for more oxygen to enter into the red blood cells. So
I think it was more red blood cells, like something like that. It added more red blood cells, which allowed you to get more oxygen into your lungs or into your body.
That allows you to train harder
and go harder when you
longer
need to.
period of time. So it definitely gives you a boost. And it was, like you said, a drug that was just not detected. It wasn't a part of things. And in that documentary, they said that the athletes were like 2 years ahead of where the agency was, the anti-doping agency. Yeah. So they were like kind of trying to figure out what the drugs that these cyclists were using, and they were already, 2 years ahead of where the anti-doping agency was. So it's hard to crack down on that. They were cracking down on old substances that these guys have already moved on from.
New things come out, new sort of things. And then I think when it all happened in bicycling, I'm pretty sure that's when that anti-doping agency was created. So they were in their early stages of trying to figure out everything. And now I think that the agency is everywhere in sports, all over the Olympics. Right. Yeah, now they're huge. Now I bet you it's a lot harder. But back then they were just in their infancy.
Yeah, because they had to not only figure out what they were using, but then create the tests to kind of be like, okay, are you using this or are you positive, negative? So it
tough business, I imagine.
Yeah, it took time for them to kind of, create what they needed to create in order to detect the things that, they needed to detect. So, throughout all of his career, throughout all of his wins, he was always kind of looked at to, kind of doing doping, and he was being accused of all of that. He was always questions for doping, and he denied for the longest time. Denied, and he kept winning. He won 7 straight Tour de France. 7 straight.
7, dude. That's nuts. That's freaking nuts. And I think they said the greatest cyclist before him won 3 or something like that.
Yeah, and I don't think it was in a row. I think it was spread apart.
6-9 years or something like that.
Yeah, and he won 7 straight.
And that's the best of the best. That is the best tour. That's it. That's the championship.
Yeah, Tour de France, and they said it was 3 weeks? It takes 3 weeks from start to finish. So it is a really physically endurance kind of thing. The top athletes got to be able to do that. You got to be in good tip-top shape. And that's what he said. He's like, I'm in probably the best shape in the world out of anybody, and here I am with cancer. It's he's like, people who smoke for 30 years or people who do this get cancer, not athletes, not people who are in the best shape of their whole life. And there he goes. He gets cancer. It was testicular cancer, but then it grew, right?
Yeah, it got everywhere. It spread, it metastasized, and it went everywhere. He had brain surgery. It was in his chest and his lungs, I'm pretty sure. And I think he was saying, he didn't exactly say at first when he found out it was testicle cancer. He thought maybe because he was on the bicycle or something like that.
Yeah, he was just hurting, right? It was hurting.
Yeah,
It was
and then he started coughing up blood, but also I think he said he started, like he felt symptoms, but he didn't want to go to the doctor. So that obviously hurt him. That obviously did not help his situation. And when he went to the doctor, they were like, dude, you're covered in this shit. It's stage 4.
Yep, stage 4 cancer, man.
And dude, like it just, I don't know. But then later he said something about a growth hormone may have done something. I think he said that before his cancer diagnosis. He took some growth hormone, and maybe he says
that's might have what could have caused the growth.
Something, I think he said like it makes good stuff grow or something like that, but it also could make bad stuff grow. And maybe, I don't know, maybe he had it already in his body, and who knows, right? Who the heck knows? Yeah. But that, I mean, I wouldn't doubt that taking those steroids and performance enhancers
probably doesn't help.
Yeah, right? Not at all. Not at all.
It doesn't help your body. So, you know, he was doping before he got cancer. He got cancer, and then he came back and started doping again.
Back to doping, yeah.
And the crazy thing is he was a better cyclist after his cancer than he was before.
Yeah, he won those 7 Tour de France all after. It was all after his cancer, like, survival, I guess, after he came back from beating it.
Yep, so he won all those things.
He came back better. And that's why I imagined all those accusations of him doping were credible, were like legitimate. Because, man, it's like, how is that possible? I think that's what a lot of European media were telling him.
Yeah, they're like, how can someone have cancer and then come back
beat everyone's ass that never had cancer?
Yeah, and so he came back, right? So he came back after cancer, and he kind of wasn't doing that well. And then he was like, all right, after this year, I'm going to retire if I don't do anything. If I don't win, I'm going to retire. And then he's like, but I won. He's like, I won everything I could have won, and I didn't retire. And thankfully he didn't. Yeah, and then he just crushed it, right? Became known for being the best cyclist in the whole world, of all time. But in 2012, the anti-doping agency came out and just dropped bombs on him. Dropped bombs on all of his denials, on everything. And he was considered to be, by that anti-doping agency, to be the ringleader. So he was the top dog. He was the one that was, kind of making the moves, making decisions.
But worse, he was not like, and then he said in the documentary, he wasn't, although he's the ringleader and he's probably the worst one out of all of them. He knew though, like there's a lot of players that get caught that say, oh, I have no idea. I didn't have any idea that what I was taking was against the rules. But he straight up said, I knew what I was taking. I studied it. I looked into it, and I took it, and I chose to take it.
Yeah, he was like, I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to lie or be one of those guys that denies. He's like, you know what?
But back then.
Yeah, he's like, I denied for so long or whatever, and now it's out there and it's hard to deny. And he's like, you know what? Yeah, I looked into it. I researched this drug, and I was like, you know what? Hell yeah.
Yeah, so give him credit on that, I guess. Give him credit for at least not BSing everybody.
Yeah, for just admitting it. I mean, it took him a little bit. So in 2012, the anti-doping agency came out and dropped bombs on all of his denials, claiming him to be the ringleader of the operation. And that operation was actually considered to be the most sophisticated doping kind of scandal or crime that there's ever been known, right? That's what they said.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. And man,
it's probably true. I mean, if all of the athletes are doing it and they're hiding it, and then the agency is like a couple years behind them, like they're more advanced. So that's what, it's claimed to be the most sophisticated, doping crime that there's ever been known. And then it took them, a year or so to come out on Oprah. Right? So he came out on Oprah and he was like, you know what? I did do it. Oprah straight up was like, did you use steroids? Yep. And he's like, yes, I did. So it took him a year, but he did it. He came out, and now this documentary is out, covering what he did and how he did it.
Yeah, and it was more interesting than I thought. Like before coming into it, I don't know, I didn't expect anything, but I honestly had no idea that he was that kind of person. He was like hot. He was a hothead. He was full of himself.
Yeah, he was very cocky.
He was, super cocky. Exactly, dude. He thought he was gonna beat you in anything, and I had no idea. I guess because he was such like a good cancer advocate.
Exactly. He was like an activist.
Yeah,
and
it
you
seemed
see
good.
Everybody would wear the Live Strong bracelets.
Yeah, you remember those bracelets, those yellow bracelets everybody has? Those were his.
I remember forcing our parents to be like, look, we got to go to the Nike outlet. We got to pick up some of those bracelets.
I had one. Yeah, I definitely had more than one, I'm pretty sure. Those were his. Yep. Those bracelets were his. So he was good. Like he was doing very good for cancer research.
The yellow came from that Tour de France jersey, right?
Yeah, that's right. Because he was the only one wearing it, I'm pretty sure. Something like that. I think the yellow jersey meant something.
The winner of Tour de France gets the yellow. Yeah.
And he represented by he probably kept wearing it for 7 straight years.
Yep. And then those yellow Live Strong bracelets came out and became almost like a very popular, like a very positive kind of figure who is doing these things for cancer and everything. Very good story. Very good story.
Survives cancer and comes back and competes better than what it was.
Yep. And then all of a sudden that bomb dropped where, he is doping and now he's looked to be one of the not most hated, but just like kind of like a liar, somebody.
Yeah, for sure. His reputation super tarnished, absolutely tarnished.
And not only his reputation, but ever since that, that story in 2012 that came out about the cyclist doping, he's been sued ever since then. Ever since that came out, he's been sued by, whether it's his, like his advertisement or not his advertisement, but his like sponsors. Sponsors.
His sponsor. It was USPS, dude, the government, the freaking postal service.
Yeah, that was
sued him.
Yep.
I think it's just because he was competing while they were paying him and he was cheating. He was on this top level, but he was cheating, so they should have not been giving him that money because he was cheating to get it.
So then they're like, we're paying you, so you got to pay us back.
And he said it was $100 million. Initially, the lawsuit was $100 million. And
he's like, I don't have that money.
Yeah, he's like, the nuclear option, dude, I got to do something. I can't remember how he explained it. He said something about if there's like a 10% chance that I'm going to end up paying $100 million, then I'm going to maybe end up paying 10 million or something like that. And his lawyers were able to lower it to like 5 million.
Yep. It ended up being $5 million, which is a huge gap from 100 million.
Huge, 100. And he's like, I don't have it.
Yeah. He's like, I don't have 100 million, but I do got 5.
I do got 5 for the USPS.
Yeah. So whatever. He paid his fines. He paid the $5 million lawsuit. And now he's just regarded as like a villain almost, after everything that he did with Live Strong, the bracelets, everything that he did came back. What a wonderful story. And now he's just looked at as a villain. Now he's just looked at as
cheater,
a cheater.
Disgrace,
exactly.
Almost.
Yeah. He's just, I mean, his reputation tanked and he was regarded as such a good guy, right? You would think that
you would imagine. Yeah, exactly.
And then watching that documentary, it almost like, it didn't make you think that he wasn't that he was a bad guy, but he definitely wasn't as good as you thought back then that he was. He openly cussed. He said the F word.
Yeah, he was calling people a bunch of mean ass stuff, and they were competitors. And I guess there was one race where it was like a time trial or something like that, and he beat everybody on the downhill, like when there was speed. I guess I can't remember what word they used.
Yeah, like a trial, like a time trial.
It was downwind or something like that. It was downwind and they were going and they had to turn around and it was upwind and it was a lot harder. And that's when Lance took over and he just made a huge gap. And after they were done, he was like, everybody was tired, everybody was super stressed out, and he wanted to keep going.
He's like, let's keep it going.
That was just a warm-up for him. That he wanted to keep it going, but he was obviously cussing him out, saying a bunch of things.
And it's funny too, the documentary started with him saying the F word, right? So it was, he's like, it took, so from 2012, 2013, around that time, he went 5 years straight. Every day was somebody coming up to him and saying "F you," like "F you for doing that," "F you for thinking that you're the best when you're not." "F you this," "F you that." So he said, yeah, 5 years straight of that every day, just hearing people say that. And then he's like, for a couple months, I didn't hear it, and he's like, wow, this is really strange. Like, man, are people really over it? And then he said one day someone came up to him and just was like, yo, F you. And then all of a sudden the people around him were like, yo,
10
F
people.
you,
He
F
said,
you.
10 people were just chanting cheater and all this F you,
and then
cheater.
He went in and he bought him drinks or something like that. He was like, you know what? Send him my love. Here's some drinks for you.
Respect. That's a boss move. Super boss move, dude.
Yeah, that is a boss move. So for him to do that, not to respond negatively or to say F you back or whatever, or I got money, I'm the champ, whatever. He's like, you know what? I'm going to buy you guys drinks.
Nice. Yeah. I'm going to do something nice for these guys.
So he's, he understands where people are coming from. He gets that, he's seen as being that steroids guy, right? Like being that kind
Absolutely.
Being that sort of villain.
And he seems to be okay with it nowadays. He seems to be at ease with it. Like, I think maybe getting it off your chest and just admitting to everything, because he wasn't saying no at all. I can't remember what question the interviewer asked him. It was something where he said, oh man, I can't remember. He said something and he was just like, yeah, I was definitely taking that stuff. I can't remember how he said it though. I can't remember what the question was, but he was just admitting to everything.
Yeah, and maybe that, kind of helped him get over it at the same time. And was
it's
like,
not eating at him.
It's out
not,
there.
Yeah, it's done.
Yeah, it's over with. It's out there. I put it out there. I admitted to it all. So now it's just time to move on from that life onto this now life.
Stripped him of his everything.
Yeah,
I think they stripped him
from
of
all
everything.
of his wins. Yeah, but that's what happens. But at the same time, if everybody was doing it right, and he was the one doing it too, and yet he's the best, is he still considered the best?
Yeah. Like, do you hate the player, hate the game? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's sort of that argument kind of comes up.
He's like in the culture. He's in like why? I don't know.
Oh yeah.
But
like, people that don't even follow cycling at all, they know who Lance Armstrong is.
And I bet you it was because of everything he did, like being the cancer survivor, coming back, and then being on top of the world. Everybody knows him. And then the scandal comes out, and it makes him like I feel like that would probably make his name more well known, because it's just everywhere. And then how bicycling is like in Europe and America now, everywhere.
Right. So Europe was like the main kind of
the best
area
for a while.
Yeah, the main area for cyclists and things. I mean, the Tour de France is in France, and the French are considered to be one of the best ones. So it's good though. I mean, that he was able to kind of change the sport, and I'm sure he brought more attention to things and more popularity. Sure. So.
Especially being American, like that's, and I think they said that he was when the first world championship he won, I think he was the only second American. And that makes me think that I don't know of too many other Americans who won the Tour de France. And they were all interviewed too. A lot of the cyclists from Europe, they were explaining everything. You remember they said like the Spaniards act this way, the Italians do this, the French are like full of themselves because they host the world's biggest tour. But the Americans, they're like, I've never met anybody weirder than the Americans.
Yeah, because he's like, Americans have so many options for sports. They have football, they have basketball.
Oh, that's right.
They have so many options for sports that the weird guys are the ones that choose cycling. And that's what he was saying. He was like, the weirdest people that I've ever met are American cyclists. He's like, those are the weirdest people.
Very good point, because they're like the odd men out. Because they're athletes and they know that they could make it far in whatever maybe they put their mind to. And I don't know, maybe they're not tall enough. They're not. And and cycling is like individual. There's almost nothing. That's
what I was about to say. Cycling is just like an individual sport. Yeah. So, I mean, that Lance Armstrong documentary looks good, just based off of that first part. The next part's coming out right on Sunday. So
Yeah.
it looked good. I mean, the one that we watched was good. It was very interesting.
It was 2 hours, yeah, and it was good to sit through. Like, yeah, I think it was also who he was. He was pretty, like, I have no idea. He was a different guy. And he was, I don't know, like he was just driving in the car or something, right? They told him to wear a seatbelt, and then he was like, no, you don't have to wear a seatbelt in the back seat.
Yeah, he's just like
and they're like, yeah, you do. You definitely do. And he started talking about something else and never put on the seatbelt.
Yeah, I don't know. He just seems like
just doesn't care
that dude
much.
That he just like is gonna do whatever he wants to do regardless. Whatever happens, he's gonna do it.
Yeah.